Church is where we make disciples, period. Church is where we make disciples. Disciples to do what? Disciples to carry out the work of Christ in the earth. Church is a place where we make disciples to carry out the mission of Christ in the earth. We also said you can't say God called you to be a medical doctor, because you don't need a calling to be a medical doctor. You don't need a calling to be a lawyer. You don't need a calling to be a nurse. And you don't need a calling to be a pilot. You only need to pass JAMB, go to a university, graduate. If it's medical science, go to medical school. If it's piloting, go to aviation school. If it is lawyering, go to law school. Graduate, be called, go for housemanship, and have your induction and begin to practice. Now that's not a calling. That is a desire. That is an ambition. That is an education and a practice. The calling of the Spirit cannot be your career. Now your career can be useful for the calling of the Spirit. But the calling of the Spirit is to do what Jesus did on the earth. Let me repeat. The calling of the Spirit of God is to do what Jesus did on the earth. The calling of the Spirit of God is to know that it is not a transference of career, but believers, are not in it to transfer a career, because believers are not carpenters. Believers are not mechanics. Believers are not tailors. That's not the calling. The apostles were not carpenters. Paul's apostolic partners were not tent makers or builders. So the truth is, you need to know what the church is. Very important. You need to know what the church is. The church is the body of believers that carry out what Jesus has done, or a body of believers that carry out what Jesus did in his earthly ministry, or what Jesus is doing today. Mark chapter 16 verse 15. Pay attention. Mark chapter 16 verse number 15. And he said unto them, go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. So the church are a people who preach the gospel. The church are a people who preach the gospel. Look at verse 16 of Mark chapter 16. He that believeth and is baptized shall be saved, but he that believeth not shall be damned. Next verse. And this sign shall follow them that believe. In my name shall they cast out devils. They shall speak with new tongues. They shall take up serpents. And if they drink any deadly thing, it shall not hurt them. They shall lay hands on the sick, and they shall recover. So the church, therefore, is described very clearly in this scripture. Look at verse 19 and 20 of Mark chapter 16. So then, after the Lord has spoken unto them, he was received up into heaven and sat on the right hand of God. Next verse. And they went forth and preached everywhere, the Lord walking with them and confirming the word with signs following